Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
Boston Rob and Amber are gonna do it.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
You, Brad Culpepper.
I'm tired of you and the fucking chicken.
You can call me the puppet master. They can be my little puppets.
It's not like you're making a deal with the devil here.
You get to milk your own milk, I guess.
Who the hell voted for me? Chicken.
Damn! We got enough rocks here, too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
I'm supposed to talk Lima to you. You understand that better?
Direct from Hobart, it's time for the only Survivor podcast in Australia dedicated to Survivor, bringing you all the latest interviews, episodes, and opinions from the greatest reality show on the planet. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host, Ben Waterworth.
Yes, welcome back everybody to Survivor Oz, Australia's #1 TV and film podcast, as we come to you once again for another episode recap. We're actually back this week with an actual survivor. That's right, we managed to find one this week, and we managed to find a very good one this week, I feel, because he is a very good friend of this program, has appeared more times on this show than any other Survivor contestant, and every single time he comes on this show, it just gets better and better. I do, of course, speak from Survivor Marquesas, Mr. John Carroll. John, welcome back to Survivor Oz.
Hello, Bean. How are you?
I am fantastic and amazing and awesome. How are you? It is Halloween for you right now. I'm cutting short your night of ghouls and ghosts and pumpkins and sweets. So thank you very much for being here on a very big night in America.
Yes, where things go bump in the night and you try not to run over 7-year-olds on your street.
Is that a common thing that people run over 7-year-olds often on Halloween?
I hope not, because that would really ruin your night. But yeah, there's I remember back when little, just there were kids running everywhere, to go to people's houses to ring the doorbell and get candy and all that. And in many of the houses where I lived, we didn't really have a lot of good candy. It was like all the terrible candy that you never really wanted. So the enterprising parents would load their poor kids into the cars and then drive them to the rich neighborhoods where you would get full-size candy bars instead of like little packs of sweet tarts and bit of honeys and candy corn, the kind of candy that nobody really wanted to eat.
Wow.
Sorry, sweet tarts. But,
that sounds like the best thing to do.
Bars, we want big candy bars.
Did they ever catch on? Did they sort of look and go, you're not from around here, but we'll still just play along with it and give you good stuff?
Yeah, because when we were kids, we lived in a pretty diverse neighborhood, so we had kids from all kinds of ethnic backgrounds, and we would go to the 100% white neighborhoods. So when we were all running up and down the street, it was pretty obvious we weren't from there. But they still give you the candy anyway.
Well, at least they do that. That's the main thing. Well, Survivor John, season 31, Second Chance, Cambodia. We talked a little bit about this, of course, last season when we had you on for the finale of Worlds Apart. But I'll be intrigued to find out what are you thinking of this season so far, as we're sort of just approaching the halfway point.
Man, I love this season. I think part of it is because it is a second chance, and everybody is a returner. And for the most part, there are people that are there to play the game. There's a few that I think, the fans would probably be able to pick out that, they kind of scratch their heads. But for the most part, there are players. I think once we get to the merge, I think we're going to see a completely just different, side of this particular season. Because right now it's been so many swaps and just trying to stay intact and, do well as a tribe, but now it's every man and woman for themselves, and I can't wait to see what all of that looks like, because the tribes have been like shuffled so many different times. I don't know that anybody really has an idea what the true alliances look like, and if there are some, whether they'll actually hold, and just self-shuffle, now that they're at the merge.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Obviously, we had that one this week, didn't we? The switch, and then we're having the merge straight away. Now, I'd like to see your thoughts on this, because it's similar to Gabon, similar to All Stars. We have kind of an extra swap, and then we have the merge the following week. Now, do you feel as though this works, or do you feel as though this might work a little bit better if they maybe had this switch for a couple of weeks and then had the merge rather than doing it directly the week later?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a toss-up. I mean, I think the fact that there was it was probably designed to kind of, if there were some alliances, to potentially put some cracks in them in one way or another. And, it turned out that the person that, with Wu going, there wasn't really anything strong there, because that tribe had been just wiped out for the first half of the season to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much impact Wu leaving will have on the rest of the game. The one thing that I think is going to shake out is potentially making Savage vulnerable, depending on what happens with his original tribe. And I mean, he didn't really, as far as we know, do anything really sneaky or overall dirty-handed. So, he may be able to join back up with Jeremy and those, or people may say, what, we're good. Sorry, we've kind of reconvened, and well, you're a threat, so you'll be an easy target.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out, because I feel kind of with this switch that we had, knowing that we've got the merge, I mean, we had a couple of interesting prospects to come from this. Now that obviously Wu went home and Savage and Wigglesworth sort of on the outs there, kind of opening that up a little bit, but also then on Bion, we saw this whole situation with Stephen, obviously trying to get a few things working along there to maybe target Joe, and a few different situations with Kelly Wentworth as well. So it's kind of like we had this set up, but it's not going to maybe come to anything, given now we've got a merge and we've got 13 people all coming together, and as you said, we don't know what alliance is going to be coming out, and which switch alliance is going to kind of work, really.
No, I mean, it's really crazy when you think about it. So on one side, you've got a tribe that has dominated, but because of the shuffles, and you've got Wentworth with an idol in her pocket who's building a relationship with Joe. You've got Steven who wants to target Joe. I mean, it could be one of these seasons where the strong, dominant alliance starts to eat its young, and just completely fractures. And then somebody like a Wentworth or another player, could kind of sneak in there, and find a wedge spot, especially with that idol in her pocket, because right now it looks like Wentworth is just kind of sitting back, seeing how things are shaking out, and I think that probably having that idol in her pocket probably gives her a lot of confidence and security, in the sense that she's at least got a play in case something starts coming her way. But think about Savage is coming into the merge. You got Spencer, so you got these other people that would have. And have had, a target, or at least, a discussion. And then you've got Abby. I mean, the Abby Gator is going to be in the mix here. So, it's like I've been doing this Survivor Shade thing with Kobe and Bryce and Joe Shaw, and watching Abby play. We've all been kind of commenting that she's just like this Medusa character that if you just get in her gaze or go crosswise with her, she's just finds this way to target you, and then everybody else just kind of goes with it. Yeah. So, Abby is, I can see her creating some havoc, in the mix as well. So I don't know. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure.
Well, we're getting a merge at 13. Earliest we've had a merge in terms of numbers. We've never had a merge at 13 before, which is really going to stir the pot. But yeah, it's fascinating with someone like Abby, because I mean, this season, of course, the huge big storyline with basically everybody has been, this is my second chance. I'm going to do this differently. This is how I'm going to play compared to how I did it last time. You would probably say someone like Cass is perhaps doing it the best. Abby, well, how's she doing with that? Because she kind of came out saying she wanted to do this, and would you maybe say that Abby's kind of gone down a path even more so on Abby Gator land compared to what she did on Philippines? Because it's been a very fascinating season to watch her play.
Oh, and then just the her facial expressions and the sneering and the snarling and just the relishing of her, these people that she's targeted. It's, it's like she gets this idea that she's been slighted, and then she's able to build, and maybe that's just, her strategy to be able to, to vote people out and all of that. It has to kind of muster up all of this animosity towards somebody, whether it's real or imagined, and then she can just go after them. And then when it's successful, I think everybody else around her is like, oh, thank God it wasn't me. And so I think she makes it easy, to go, hey, look, she's got all the energy, and there isn't really a reason not to, go, with the direction that she's going. I don't see anybody who's got an alliance partner that's at risk. And so, she's the one that's leading the charge. The problem they all have is if she does find herself into an alliance that she doesn't turn on, she could be really dangerous because she's got all of the resume of taking all these people out in the early part of the game. And so if she can even get close to the finale, I think she becomes even more dangerous.
So you feel that she could actually win this game?
Oh, I think if she was to make it to the finale, other than just flipping everybody off and telling them all to go screw them, or poisoning them or shooting them or beating them with sticks, throwing rocks at them. Look at her resume so far. Her fingerprints have been around every single person's throat that has been snuffed out of the game so far.
Wow, that's an interesting thought to see how that plays out. And I guess also, too, someone like Abby, and there's a few others really now at this merge that you feel aren't going to be targeted early. I mean, it's kind of the case at this point, isn't it, where a lot of people like a Joe or a Jeremy or a Savage, these sort of stronger alpha males will generally be targeted. So, an Abby or kind of, a Kimmy, or even sort of when you were talking about Kelly Wentworth, these are sort of people that perhaps could be safe at least for a week or two as the alliances come together and try and take out the big guns at this point.
Oh yeah, I think so. And if somebody like Wentworth and even Wigglesworth, Kimmy, I think is probably too polarizing. So if she's in the power alliance, I think she stays in that mix, unless she decides to go off on her own and cobble together some other players. But at some point, unless the guys are all going to align, they're going to be targeted. Because right now I think everybody's probably looking at Abby as a GOAT, and so nobody is really probably wanting to take her out. The problem is she may be a GOAT, but she's really the only one other than Kimmy targeting Monica that has taken people out. Everybody else has just kind of been biding their time and kind of staying out of harm's way. But meanwhile, Abby has been at the center of every single vote except for Monica.
It's an interesting way of looking at that, actually, when you describe it that way. What's been your take, though, on sort of the older school players, the way they've kind of adapting to this? Because, obviously we know you're from the very early days, John, season 4, so you've got a couple of people, you've got...
like the wheel, like the Survivor wheel, and we invented fire.
Yes. Well, we saw a bit of it early on, didn't we, kind of with this old school clashing with new school, and it seems to be sort of a recurring theme, but, we've only really lost Varna so far from that old school, and of course, Dietz, if you want to say technically classify that. I'd probably more say middle school for Dietz, but we'll get to him. But obviously you look at Wigglesworth, we look at Kimmy, we look at Savage, really those first 10 seasons who are left in the game. Have you been impressed, surprised? What's kind of your take on how the older school players are adapting to this form of Survivor?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I can't even say that Kelly is playing an old school game. I'm not really sure exactly what Kelly's doing, other than she may be such an extreme introvert that she's out there, she's working hard in the challenges. But there hasn't been anything. She just looks like a really sweet woman. I just don't really see anything that we're seeing of any game at all. I think she's this, obviously this huge Survivor legend. To get second place ever in the first games, and then what did she lose? I think 1 vote. And so in terms of what's happening now, it's like it's just a strange dichotomy. I mean, there isn't really anything there. I can imagine it would be on the production side would be a huge disappointment, but at the same time, she still has the the cred of being Kelly Wigglesworth. Kimmy is the one I thought is gone out there and is not afraid to kind of muck it up, and I think she's kind of got like Abby in her, has that kind of could really create some chaos. And I know that she's boisterous and she's loud and she's all those things, so people may be looking at her going, she might be the perfect goat. But the problem again is these people they're perceiving as goats. There's only two people that have truly had their hands dirty and getting things going. It's Abby and Kimmy. Mm-hmm. So everybody else has just been, let's get along to get along. And so it'll be interesting to see like what happens and who's actually going to start, doing things. And I think at the merge, I could easily see Kimmy come even more as show up more as a player, because she's already done it once, and now they've got to like really start getting blood on their hands and start figuring out like how is this going to work? Because I mean, a 13-person tribal council is going to be potential bedlam, because people may not even know what's happening until it actually is at tribal council. Yeah, like people may be sitting on the fence, and then they're going to be forced to pick sides, because with 13, you could easily see where this like 7-6 kind of thing, but it could easily turn into like a 10-3 or a 9-4, and then there'd be a little bit of a potential, kind of pagong looking thing, and then a reshuffling of the numbers as you kind of get close to the core alliance.
Yeah, I think we were kind of discussing that in terms of, I think it sets it up perfectly, as you were saying, how crazy a tribal council is going to be at 13, just, thinking about how...
I can't wait.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess then kind of the downside to that is like maybe we'll have this one vote that will really sort of lock in, an alliance of 9 or 10 or 8. Mm-hmm. And then, we might get a pagonging for a few weeks. But, I mean, you kind of do feel like, some of these characters we're talking about on this show really can change things up a bit. And maybe this is where the multiple switches pre-merge have helped, because, as you said sort of at the top of the episode, we don't really know what alliances are still there. I mean, we kind of saw, inklings there of the original Bion alliance being there, but then we do know that there was a KO5 alliance formed, and there was, ties formed on Angkor, and then who knows what was formed on this, extra switch. So, whilst we may have, seeds of a pagonging after the first week, I kind of feel that we've got enough to go off from the first 6 episodes here that really will set up some crazy, crazy moves at this portion of the game.
Yeah, and and like where does Abby go? I mean, she took out Wu, and so Savage is like, oh, what am I dealing with here? So he knows how she is as a player. He's been away from the other people, and he hasn't played with some of the others. So, I don't envy his position going back. He's not been with his originals. He's with this wild, unpredictable player. He's got Wigglesworth, who, potentially is going to be with him. But, she may read the tea leaves very quickly and be like, nope, I'm going to go tuck myself back in, or she may just be picked off. But then you got this whole dynamic with Steven wanting to make a big move because he just doesn't want to he's so afraid of being taken out by a golden boy and somebody who potentially could cause him problems. And you can see he wants to take a hold of the game, but he doesn't have an alliance partner that is willing to go with him on that. And I think that part of it is maybe a respect thing. Like, people know he knows the game, but then his challenge performances are so bad that, you need to have somebody at the individual side, at the merge, who's going to be able to hold their own, in the challenges. Because, if you're going to have one or two kind of a power alliance, then, you're hoping one of the two or one of the three of you is going to be able to win individual immunity. But he can't do that. And so that, I think that weakens him. His challenge performance, I think, weakens him as a true alliance, partner. I think right now Jeremy just looks at him as a number, And then if he gets too cute, I could see him being cut loose. So, who knows? This is going to be just nuts.
It's so fascinating with Stephen. And I mean, this season kind of, again, another real trope we've seen is a lot of emotions coming out of players. I feel we saw that earlier on in one of the tribal councils. I think it might have been the first one when Wigglesworth really kind of stuffed up that challenge, and you just saw how emotional it made her knowing that she could be the first to go. And we've seen a lot of that from players. And really this week with Stephen, full on breakdown. Obviously this has been something that has lived with him for so many years. And I mean, I'm sure, John, from your perspective, this might be something that you could connect with, because I could imagine if you were to go back on the show, you've waited this long, you want to sort of, make things right that you did the first time around. And if you're in a position, I could easily see how somebody like this could break down and get emotional at this sort of game.
Oh, I totally did. When we were watching it, I looked at Chad and I said, that could totally be me. I mean, I said, I get that. I get that passion. I get, being potentially haunted by, how the last time went, and then, to want to play the game one way and then, be surrounded by people that just don't want to play that way. That was a little bit like what Marquesas was like. We had all gotten along, and so, way I played is very similar to the way Steven's playing, 14 years later is, he so badly wants to not play the same game or end up with the same outcome. But I think the thing with Steven is he needs to understand he can still play his own game, but it's just going to be at a different pace. It's going to be in a way that, if this agenda that he's kind of put together, it's not, people aren't cooperating. And so his plan is not going according to plan. And so you can see where he's getting really overwhelmed. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to slow that down and let the game, come to him. But we saw with Steven, just from the very beginning, he was just kind of tone deaf across the board, whether it was around camp. At least this is what they're showing. There may be some other moments that aren't like that, but as I said in Survivor Shade, this Stephen Fishback humiliation tour continues for another week. I mean, oh my goodness, and it's great. I mean, he's become this like kind of Jerry Lewis, character on Survivor, in Abbott and Costello kind of fashion, where he just can't get it right. I mean, it's just. He can't break a stick. He can't chop a coconut. He can't shoot a slingshot. He can't run. I mean, it's like, it just never ends. And then he wants to play this great psychological, crafty game. And he's got like Jeremy, who's just like chill. He's like, I got the numbers. We don't have to do anything stupid. And I think, Steven's like, no, you can't rest on that. People are going to realign. Things are going to change. You can't just assume we're all going to go as just one unit, through, to the finale. And I think he's right. But I think that he's got to, hopefully he finds a way to be more patient. And then once the merge happens, maybe he's going to have to put something else together. Because if he doesn't think that Jeremy's going to, respect him or work with him the way he wants, maybe he may have to put something else. But if he does that instantly potentially puts a target on his back as a traitor.
Just want to go through some of the other players at this point of the game. Speaking of Jeremy, I mean, how have you kind of found his game at this point? Obviously, he's an idol, looks fairly comfortable in his alliances. Do you feel he's in a very good position currently right now?
Yeah, I do. And I had Wentworth and Jeremy on my kind of radar as doing really well. I just thought that they're both very smart people. They're athletic. They got enough of the social game, but I just felt like both of them going into this, had a lot to prove. And I thought that they were I thought they were astute enough to be able to take their second chance and really make the most of it. We haven't really seen any missteps by Wentworth. The only misstep I saw with Jeremy was he kind of concocts some fears that I don't think they're legitimate. I think that they're just kind of taken hold. Like, not wanting to talk about his wife that's pregnant and that nobody will give him the money if they find out. I mean, I have no clue like how he was able to, cobble that together. Even the people I've talked to said, they didn't get it either. But when you're playing the game, your mind can do some really screwy things to you, and paranoia kind of gets in the mix. So when he walked away and all of that, it turned out it didn't really harm him, but potentially it could have. Somebody might have taken a look at that moment rather than him just being honest and sharing as well. I think that would have been something that would have bonded him with his team. But other than that, I think he's playing a really good game. I just hope that he doesn't get too comfortable and too confident with his numbers and the idol in his pocket. That's the part that makes me worried for him. That seems to be a vulnerability because there's just this confidence that you can see in him, and just kind of laying on the hammock, and when Stephen was talking to him, you just didn't see him really even just kind of maybe put that other stuff to the side and kind of meet Stephen in the middle a little bit, maybe assuage him, and like, but let's just kind of see how things go. But instead, he just kind of rebuffed him, which, that's not good, because now, Stephen's going to be edgy, feels like he's not being, heard, so that could create a problem.
Yeah, and you feel Stephen could easily read that, given that we know outside of the game he basically spends a lot of his time analysing the game. So it's interesting with Jeremy because kind of in some Wandel, sir, he was sort of in a similar position. I mean, he sort of had to fight off the Josh attack really and kind of got all that inside and then was very confident in his position. And obviously we know how then he was completely blindsided with how, John and Jacqueline and all that took him out at that point. So it's going to be fascinating to see really if he has learned, as you were saying, kind of from that. Another person, Cass, I sort of mentioned her before when I was saying about, changing their games up. We really saw a lot this week of, her sort of saying, do we have Chaos Cass? Do we have Cuddly Cass? Or Cute Cass or whatever? Or Calm Cass? That's the one I'm thinking of. We started calling it Cuddly Cass, John. How have you kind of found Cass this season? Because, I think I was one of many who predicted her to be the first boot. And, here we are at the merge, and she's actually playing fairly decently, I think.
Well, I think that, everybody's going to have a reputation. They're going to have a history because everybody's played before. If they do another incarnation of this, and so it could be your greatest strength, or it could be your greatest weakness. But once everybody gets out there, you don't know how those energies are going to align. So sure, if she came out of Chaos Cast like right out of the gate, everybody would have been expecting that. But she, looks like she did the opposite, which was probably like a breath of fresh air. But the thing is her tribe was successful. Mm-hmm. So she didn't have the pressure of the game being underfoot. So, she could temper all that because she didn't have to bring it out. But man, the moment she had the opportunity, she at least talked to the cameras about, Spencer and, that whole dynamic. And so something happened in the mix. And every time it looks like it's going to be somebody, Abby's in the mix. Like the time it could have been Jeff that very first time, it wasn't. And then, then when it was between Spencer and Jeff, Abby, went with Jeff, took him out. And then suddenly, it kind of looked like it was Spencer in the mix. And then suddenly it shifted. Well, who was the one person that Abby had, an axe to grind? Well, it was Wu. You wrote my name. You wrote my name down twice, and as soon as those votes started coming, she was gloating. So something happened in the mix where and I think part of it is if Abby makes her decision on who it's going to be, it sounds like once she gets there, that's where she's at, and then the rest of people are going, well, okay. I can go with that one because it's not me. And that would be my second choice. So, okay, great. We'll go with you, Abby, and keep you happy. And now we've got to, we've got to vote. So it sounds like Cass probably really did have Spencer, but something in the mix, changed all that. But the one thing we do know is Savage had no clue.
Well, apparently, I've sort of read through a few comments in that about this episode that, it was actually Abby's idea to target Wu because I think they wanted to go after Savage at this point. We just didn't see it, if that's true. But
Right.
Do you feel Cass made the right decision to take out Wu rather than Spencer, to sort of side with the Sierra Abby side rather than going with Savage and Wigglesworth at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Wu is athletic. I mean, he was going to be in the mix. I think that that's probably something that could have waited, that there were craftier, more powerful personalities that could have a better chance of convincing people. But, it looked like Savage kind of had the group together. I think Savage, his mistake in that episode is, having Sierra be a decoy or the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And, and anybody that watches Survivor knows nobody wants their name down, even if it's 100% that you're not going home. Nobody wants that, even that icebreaker. Nobody wants that seal broken, that suddenly now it's okay to put your name down. Nobody wants to give up that territory, because it seems like once somebody's name starts getting written down, it's really easy to continue writing that person's name down. So the fact that, he didn't talk to her, and I can't, even imagine that they were going to be willing, to do it. So if they were going to do something like that, he certainly shouldn't have just told her it was going to be that way. So I think that started the reshuffling. And then with Sierra not being happy with the one that was being talked about as the target, and then Abby holding a grudge against Wu, Cass, I think, saw an easy way to, kind of separate all of those guys. And so I don't think it's a downer so much, but it seems like there might have been a better avenue to take. We'll see how it all shakes out, but but it depends on what she does with it. If she goes to Andrew and say, look, there was nothing, goes to Savage and says, look, there was nothing I could do, but, I want to work with you. Because Cass is going to have a target on her back, at some point in time, because they know she's a player.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not going to be afraid to make big moves. But people also could look at her as a goat and be wanting to take her, that way. But I think she's way too dangerous as a goat to take to the finale.
Yeah, well, we saw that kind of last time around, and people often said Wu made his, $1 million decision there with Cass. Cass always adamant that had she been taken to the final two, she wouldn't have, been whitewashed and might not necessarily have lost to Wu. But again, that's a whole different scenario. Now, John, I'm going to get to our final five and get some thoughts on this, but I want to start this a bit earlier, because the first one is always, who's your tip to win? Now, you face this question numerous times over the years, John. You've been on numerous of these recaps. But when you give me your tip to win, I wouldn't mind hearing maybe just a few different choices, because we kind of analysed the other night on our Oztopsy who we maybe thought at this point of the game in terms of the edit and how they're playing is in with a shot of winning. And we all really had a few different answers. So not only if you give me sort of your one tip to win, but maybe just a few other ones that you feel could win based on what we're seeing right now.
Okay, let's see here. I think Sierra, with what you saw of her, you could tell she was taken aback, but she had a good poker face, and then went with the people she wanted to, and it looked like she was being heard, like her voice counted, and so you could see where she could in a very kind of silent but deadly kind of way kind of find her way in there, because nobody's going to look at her as a huge challenge threat, but anybody that can vote out their mom is somebody you got to watch out for. And
yes.
And I loved how practical she was. She didn't like it, she didn't blow up, she didn't throw a conniption fit. She quietly processed that. She told us, via confessional how she felt about it, and then went to the people that she was working with saying, I'm not down with that. And, and so I think she was definitely a part of why Wu went home. Keith is a good old boy. I think he is somebody who is kind of escaping, anybody's target list. and that's somebody who could be dangerous because he could be, I think, very good in the challenges. And then before you knew it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we didn't keep track of Keith. Like, what's happening here? I could see him sneaking in there. Jeremy, if he maintains some good numbers and doesn't, let it go to his head and get arrogant and super power hungry, I think even though he's, an alpha male who's in great shape and all that, I could see where he could work his way through there. Same thing, Kimmy could be perceived as a goat type character and find her way into the finale simply because she's working with numbers. And I imagine she would have, I know she would have a voice, and I could see where she might be able to convince people to go, instead of go A, go B, and then she'll have that as part of her resume. The question is could she defend that? Could she argue in a final tribal council in a way that would convince people, to see it her way? Who knows? But there's a lot of people here. Cass could make her way through there. But I just feel like Abby, Cass, at some point, they're going to do something that targets them. I just don't see them having the game for the long haul in a season like this. I just think that there's something that's going to come up because I don't see anybody bring in a true traditional GOAT in this season. I think that it's going to be people that are going to be clawing their way to the top. They're going to want a resume of things that they did in the game. And I think that they're going to be going for the respect vote in making it to the finale and asking for the $1 million.
So if you had to have one person right now is your tip to win, who is it?
Other than Kelly Wentworth?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, if it's Kelly Wentworth, then you tell me Kelly Wentworth.
Yeah, it's Kelly's my pick.
Right. Okay. Done. Right. Yeah. And your dark horse, myriad of those options you just gave me. Do you want to choose just one of those?
Yes, Sierra.
Sierra. Beautiful. This is the hardest time you'll ever get this question, I feel, John, given that we've got a 13-person merge next week. Who's next to be voted out?
I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say it's either Savage or Joe.
Right, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Let's see that.
Yeah.
Now, this next one, sadly...
And when I say limb, I mean for Joe, simply because it looks like he's in the numbers, but, I could see some crazy stuff happening,
Joe, you just feel Joe, we know what he's like, and he sort of had this real golden boy edit at the moment, but at this point of the game, that doesn't really come across too well. He's going to have to do what Mike did on his season and just keep winning, perhaps, or something like that. Now, I'm not going to let you answer yourself for this one, John, sadly, but from your season, who would you most like to see come back and have a second chance that already hasn't or isn't yourself?
Nelia.
Nelia. I thought you were going to go that one. I kind of felt confident with that one. My favourite one of the lot, out of all the players this season, can be ones who have been voted out or ones who are still in the game. Which player do you feel is playing most similar to how you played on Survivor Marquesas?
I'm just running through my head real quick. I would probably say Jeremy.
Jeremy? I can see that.
Without the overt power-hungry arrogance.
Because you didn't have any of that, John.
Yeah. And we haven't really gotten to the merge yet to see when those, like the Power Alliance emerges. So we might start to see more of that because right now they only had to go once. They got rid of Monica. In our season, we went once in 15 days. We voted out Gabe, and then we kind of settled in there. And then it wasn't until, the merge and all of that, then, we started getting drunk with power.
Drunk with power. I like it. John, it's always a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. You're always welcome. You know that on the show. And give a plug. Please give a plug for Survivor Shade. I'm enjoying reading it. I'm enjoying seeing you posting it on our Facebook page and everything along those lines. But please, for people who haven't heard about it and don't know what you're talking about, let people know what it is.
Sure. So I just started this particular season. Bryce, Kobe, and myself, we were on Facebook Messenger, just kind of riffing, and then Joe Shaw, who's a Survivor fan. Then the four of us started just throwing little one-liners and stuff out, and then it just kind of morphed into this blog. And so each week we break down the show, and as three gay guys can only do, and we throw all kinds of shade at people, and we don't try not to do anything to hurt people's feelings, but we'll call a spade, when we see it. But it's survivorshade.com, and then every week after the show, we just break it down and we do fun little gifts and all of that. And then we're putting together an actual, I'll mention it for the first time here because we haven't really announced it yet to anybody. We're doing what we're calling a Christmas special, and it's going to be called A Very Shady Christmas.
Great.
And so stay tuned, because that one is going to be a lot of fun, and it's actually a pretty kind of big project logistically to get everything to work out like we want it to. But it'll be the episode of Thanksgiving week will come out late, because of part of what we're going to be doing with that review. So stay tuned for the Very Shady Christmas special for survivorshade.com.
Well, we look forward to it, mate, and thank you once again. And not only do we look forward to getting you back on the show, but hopefully I look forward to meeting you in person in Temecula in April next year for Reality Rally.
That's right. Yes, you'll see us there. I can't wait. We're going to actually get to see each other in person.
We
and
do,
you're going to bring me boxes and boxes of Tim Tams.
I will be. I've already been instructed to do so, and I want you to bring heaps of the pink lemonade or the pink... What were you drinking that time? I can't even remember. Pink champagne?
It was... it was... I think they were like vodka pink lemonades or something.
Sounds good enough to me. It's pink. It's got vodka in it. Why not? I'm there.
I'll bring the recipe.
There we go. John Carroll. Always fun. Might have been the shortest John Carroll episode we've ever had on this show, but even in short episodes, it's still always a lot of fun. And we're obviously very happy to be able to have a Survivor contestant this week. Apologies for sort of last week, and we've had a few weeks where we've advertised one person and had a different person on. Entirely out of our hands there, folks. We apologise for that, but we do try our very best to bring you the ones that we advertise at least, and then of course bring ones, and certain things happen over the course of a weekend that do change them. So thank you for at least staying with us and being patient in regards to this. But we continue to cover Survivor Cambodia week to week, and Oztopsy back live a little bit earlier now that they're showing a little bit earlier in Australia, and technical issues we've had a few times there on Spreecast, so we hope to have them rectified as well. Stay tuned as well for who we have up as our Survivor recappers coming up this weekend for episode 7. It's going to be a lot of fun at the merge to see how all that plays out, and of course we will have amazing race episodes and everything else in between. SurvivorOz.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, easiest way to get your episodes, and like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You know the drill, folks, and YouTube as well. We've been updating them up to the most recent ones, so they should be all up to date. And just also too, for those who were having issues with past episodes in terms of our server transfer, they should all be fixed by now. If you do have any issues in regards to episodes downloading, not working, please do send us a message or comment on the post, and we will look into the issue at hand, given that it all should be fixed right now. My name is Ben, this has been Survivor Oz. I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and we will speak to you next time on The Trains.